studying it. I wasn't really interested. Stockton Rush asked me if I wanted to go out there and dive this season. I wasn't interested. There was a lot of concern about this outfit and this sub. A lot of concern, even to the extent that I wasn't involved in it because I was making Avatar 2 at the time, but a lot of them got together and wrote a letter.
Stockton could be a very awkward person. And if he wasn't happy with somebody, he was very vocal. Very vocal. It was inevitable something was going to happen.
He says OceanGate leadership, including founder and CEO Stockton Rush, who died in the implosion, made bad engineering decisions and ignored safety concerns, saying they were more focused on getting to the Titanic and making money.
There was a big push to get this done, and a lot of steps along the way were missed.
He says Rush was too confident in his creation.
I know Stockton's vision was, give somebody these PlayStation controller and within an hour they're going to be a pilot. It's not the way it works. It doesn't just implode, it screams like a mother before it implodes. Now, for the CEO to say that in front of other people, right, regarding that carbon fibre, I'm putting that on the record, and I know you've all heard it. It's disgusting, it's appalling, total disregard for safety, not even just for himself, but for everybody else. Nobody. Very strong social media team that would sell the company, sell seats. The company itself, the whole idea behind the company was to make money. That's it. There was very little in the way of science.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. You've just heard David Lockridge, the company's former Marine Operations Director. He claimed that he repeatedly raised the alarm but was ignored. He also said there was very little in the way of science. Stockton Rush is an interesting character in the true crime pantheon because he is someone who, as an engineer, was supposedly aware of the scientific method. He was educated at Princeton, so he wasn't stupid. But stupid is as stupid does, and what we see here is how a smart person somehow manages to ignore facts and evidence, who seems to know better in spite of a majority of experts telling him don't do that. And what does he do? He persists anyway. Before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So, according to an article in The Telegraph, what Lockridge found was an abomination of a sub. That's what he said to the hearing, adding that he later learned that many components were reused in a second version of the Titan hull that was involved in the disaster. Submarine builder Carl Stanley was similarly stunned at Stockton's disconnect with reality and common sense, and more than one of Rush's colleagues didn't only feel manipulated, well, they felt lied to. Mr. Lockridge testified Stockton liked to do things on the cheap, referencing a 2018 report. This is again according to the Telegraph. He raised safety issues about OceanGate operations. Mr. Lockridge said he had no confidence whatsoever in the way Titan was built. None of this is particularly new now, but the conversation that I think is new and necessary is how a twisted, reality-defying psychology like this can manifest in a seemingly intelligent, educated person from a well-to-do background. He's got everything going for him. How does he end up sort of going off on a tangent the way that he does? According to the Telegraph, Lockridge said leadership dismissed his concern on every single occasion, adding that all the standardized rules and regulations were bypassed as the company scrambled to push for a launch so they could start making a profit. He also said it was inevitable something was going to happen. It was just a question of when.
I got a bad feeling about this.
And Lockridge's intuitions weren't wrong. Now, on paper, Rush may seem an enigma, but I think it's fair to say we are all capable of being irrational for various reasons. Emotions make us irrational. Did emotions play a role in the Titan tragedy? I think they did. When you talk a big game, when you raise expectations, when you've got a family legacy to live up to, well, and also if your social media is braggadocious, and OceanGate's was, well, you have to back all of that up. Then there's greed. Greed is another one, and it doesn't just emerge in a vacuum. It comes from envy, comparing oneself to others, which Rush was doing constantly, seeing himself as the next Elon Musk. He repeatedly brought Musk up in presentations. Also, Jeff Bezos or Steve Jobs. He also said that he wanted to be a real-life Captain Kirk. He vocalized this. And so if that's your identity, if that's what you want to be, and it's not really founded on reality, you are going to be dismissive of anyone who criticizes that. According to the Telegraph, Stockton Rush styled himself as a cross between an Ernest Shackleton-style explorer and an Elon Musk-esque business visionary. But at the hearings into the tragedy which saw the Titan submersible owned by Russia's OceanGate company implode on the way to the wreck of the Titanic last year, a very different figure emerged, a very different person behind this face, this impression. The man behind the actor began to emerge. Again, according to the Telegraph, the inquiry in Charleston, South Carolina, opened on Monday and heard from a host of former OceanGate employees. And they described the founder as arrogant, claimed that he ignored expert advice, flaunted regulations, and put profit ahead of safety in his determination to reach the wreck of the ocean liner. And basically what's going on is the rules don't apply to him. Why? Because he's trying to be a maverick. He's trying to be a hero in his own story. Rush also seemed particularly aware of James Cameron and even reached out to him directly and invited the world-famous movie director to dive on the doomed sub. To his credit, Cameron refused.
Really interested. Stockton Rush asked me if I wanted to go out there and dive this season. I wasn't interested. There was a lot of concern about this outfit and this sub.
And I think Stockton was actually envious of people like James Cameron and Elon Musk. He wanted that kind of legacy for himself. And where does envy arise from? Well, it's when people compare themselves to those who possess what they want. And what that leads to is feelings of inadequacy and resentment and a kind of a feeling of greed, like I just want that. And from this psychological perspective, we see that greed originates from unmet needs. You want to be something, but you realize you are not that. And so greed can be a motivator, but it can also lead to a fixation with fantasy, fiction, and magical thinking. And when greed is frustrated, it can be the trigger that fully awakens the dragon. Anxiety and pressure can also make us irrational. We know now what we always suspected, that Rush was under crushing financial pressure at the time of the implosion. What did he do? He gave in to it against his better judgment. But in the theater of heroism, the biggest addler of the mind of all, especially of men, the greatest destroyer of common sense, is ego. And look at this quote from Muhammad Iqbal. The ultimate aim of the ego is not to see something, but to be something. Now think about how someone can refuse to see something, ignore the signs in order to try to become something. And so clearly, if we want to see reality undiluted, undistorted, objectively, we simply need to take control of ego, anxiety, and our emotions. It's simple, just not that easy. We need to keep greed and magical thinking in check. That's the antidote. But are we in the habit of doing that, or are we in the habit of giving in to these?
Food for thought.
I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.